ABC News World Headquarters in New York. This is World News Tonight.
Good evening. There are now at least 13 confirmed dead in the crash of an Amtrak train south of Chicago last night. It was a horrible accident.
It could only be described as a nightmare for more than 200 Amtrak passengers. Their New Orleans-bound train derailed last night about 50 miles south of Chicago.
13 people are known dead tonight, dozens more seriously injured in the wreck of Amtrak's City of New Orleans. Blood and debris are all over the tracks in Bourbonnais, Illinois, about 50 miles south of Chicago. It was there last night that the express bound for New Orleans plowed into a tractor trailer loaded with steel, careened off the tracks, and burst into flames.
It was cold, it was dark, and it was terrifying. 8 double-decker passenger cars derailed and skidded into a twisted, burning pile of metal late last night.
These were people who moments before had been enjoying a drink in the lounge, finishing dinner, or tucking in for the night. In just seconds, they were thrown from their seats. Diesel fuel spewed from the badly damaged locomotive, and the sold-out sleeper car was enveloped in flames.
Concentrate on the car right next to you that's burning, and that's the only place we're going to concentrate.
Survivors spoke of flying bodies and falling baggage. The few witnesses on the ground at the time spoke of a deafening collision.
I heard an explosion, felt the ground shake, seen cars flying up in the air, just unbelievable.
They got to really rocking, like boom, boom, throwing people. I'm like, yeah, we finna die. I thought we was dying.
214 people set out on this train last night, and it was shortly after 10 o'clock that disaster struck. A flatbed truck was in a crossing at Bourbonnais, Illinois. The train slammed into it. Within 30 seconds, 11 of its 14 cars had derailed. Diesel fuel spilling from an engine ignited the sleeping car, where a lot of people had already made themselves comfortable for the night.
There are 2 locomotives at the front of the train, followed by the baggage car, a car called a transition car, and the 5th car is the sleeper. This will go down as one of the worst rail crossing accidents in Amtrak history.
If you look at pictures from above, the aerial view really gives an idea of what this looks like. It's almost a visual assault to see this jumbled train. The city of New Orleans is one of the most popular passenger trains there is. When the Amtrak City of New Orleans line derailed, the Jackson, Mississippi high school teenagers were coming home from a ski trip with 13 classmates.
You can't imagine it unless you've been through it. You can't imagine the complete fear and knowing that nobody on earth can do anything about it and that you are going to derail.
They were 1 hour out of Chicago with 10 hours to go. They were riding 79 miles an hour on a train they call the City of New Orleans. The engineer had seen a flatbed truck loaded with steel trying to cross the tracks. Frantically, he sounded the horn and hit the brakes, but there was no way to avoid this disaster. It takes 3 minutes for a train going 79 miles an hour to stop. The engineer had less than 30 seconds. And that jolt the passengers felt was the collision. Then the cars left the track.
Among the survivors of the train wreck was a group of about 20 teenagers from Mississippi and their chaperones. They were returning from a spring break ski trip to Canada. One of the students from the group is Christina Bomgaars. She joins us now from Bourbonnais.
We came, when it was on its side, we came up through the windows on what was now the top of it, and the whole wreck laid out in front of us, and we could see the burning car, and we just kind of fell to pieces because a lot of our friends had been in the club car playing cards, and we didn't know what car it was that was burning. And it was terrifying not knowing where they were or what was burning or if our car was going to explode at any minute. It was right near us, the burning car.
Christina Bomgaars was one of the passengers on the Amtrak train. And tell us again what you felt just before the impact.
We were getting ready to play cards. We didn't have our shoes on though. All through this wreck, a lot of us were without shoes or socks, just barefoot in the snow. But we had just been getting ready to play cards, and we were just standing around just joking with our friends, waiting for everybody to, who wanted to play to come. And then all of a sudden we just felt a huge, just like we just slammed into something, and everybody was kind of thrown forward.
How many cars back in the train were you? What car were you?
I think we were the 6th car. We were the first coach car behind the dining car.
And when the impact occurred, were you then tossed around violently, or what did you feel? What did you experience?
When we first hit, I flew into somebody's chair, the back of somebody's chair, because I'd been standing in the aisle. It was, we all started kind of getting thrown everywhere as soon as we jumped the tracks and it started to fall over. Then, you know, luggage was just coming off the racks and everything was just flying everywhere.
So the train car you were in then tipped over. How did you get out? How did you escape?
3 of the guys in our group really kept their heads. They were wonderful. They got us calm again, because we were very shooken up, you know. But they kept their heads. They found the emergency exit on the windows on top of it, which was now the top, which is really the side, because it was on its side. But they found it and they got it open, and they just started pulling the people out who could move and walk and everything, because I think they were afraid that it was going to catch on fire while we were still in there, so they were just trying to get everybody out as soon as possible.
And when you finally then got out of the overturned train car, where did you go? What did you do after that?
When we were on top of it, they had rescue people that were down on the ground. We slid off the side and they caught us, or
But here you are barefoot, it's cold out, snow on the ground.
Yes, we started walking across the stones that were by the train tracks, but there was too much metal and we were going to cut our feet. There was also diesel in the grass that we got to, so when we got to the grass, the firemen and rescue people carried us across it so that we wouldn't have to get our feet in the diesel fuel. They carried us up to the road and we walked from there to the camper where they were keeping us.
Christina Bomgaars, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your experiences.
It was a nightmare for family members and friends who spent the night praying by the phone.
Sometime around 11 o'clock was the first we heard of it.
Dennis Bomgaars' daughter, Christina, was one of the 16 kids returning from their spring skiing trip to Canada.
When you know you're talking to your daughter right off the bat, you're thankful that she's alive, and then you begin hearing the details.
Christina Bomgaars, the 15-year-old who walked away from the crash, she joins us from Bourbonnais. We also have her parents, Dennis and Sharon Bomgaars, standing by in Jackson, Mississippi. Good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
Good morning. I gather because of the video you can both see on each side, it's the first time you've seen each other. Mrs. Bomgaars, is there anything you'd like to say to Christina this morning? How does she look to you?
She looks lovely. Christina's been very faithful in letting us know what's happening, and we're very thankful for that.
I can imagine.
I had just hung up the phone when it rang again, and it was Christina's voice, and I thought she was going to say, "Mom, we're late," and she said, "Mom, our train derailed. And I'm okay."
You are a very, very lucky family, and we certainly appreciate your joining us this morning.
We do not have cable channels on our TV, but we do have the internet, and I saw my first picture of the wreck on CNN and MSNBC on the internet, and I'm very glad we talked to Christina before we actually saw the pictures, because the pictures were terrible, of course.
Christina, you still have to get home. How are you going to accomplish that? Would you get back on a train?
I would get on a train, but I can't say that I would like to go home on one right now.
I don't blame you.
Some of us girls have been having trouble. Yesterday we felt sick off and on all day, just feeling just kind of sick whenever we think about it, or whenever something reminds us of it. Going up and down elevators, when they shake, it just brings back memories, and a lot of things bring back memories. Riding across tracks yesterday, it's just a lot of things. It just brings back terrible memories.
God was just so good. I remember when Marion met me at the airport, she gave me some flowers, and there was a card in there, and it had the verse in Isaiah 43 that said, "When you pass through the waters, when you pass through the flames, I will be with you, and they will not consume you. Do not fear, for I am the Lord. I have called you by name, and you are mine." And it was just so perfect for that. Just knowing that so many people had died in that wreck. It's really hard to understand why God let all 18 of us survive. And I remember when they were looking for the 2 little girls that were both killed in the sleeper car. They were sisters, and I remember they were frantically looking for them, and they came up to us and asked us if we knew where they were, or, you know, if we were them. And they were just, knowing that those two little girls didn't survive was just really hard to understand. I remember as we were in our hotel room later on that night, it was about 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was just watching the sunrise and just knowing that I could see another sunrise. It just really makes you thankful for what God has given me, and knowing that He allowed me to survive was, I mean, I know that He has something planned for my life, and it's just, it made me really see how quickly your life can be taken from you.
Sharon and I, of course, want to give public praise to God for His gracious sparing of our youth on that trip. And over the last few days, Sharon and I have pondered the way to best describe God's providences this week so that the description is equally applicable to the Lipscomb family as it is to the Bomgaars family. And in thinking about that, we thought, well, we cannot say simply Christina came back safe and sound because God was faithful. Because God was faithful to the Lipscomb family this week as well. And we couldn't simply say, well, maybe it was mercy. Maybe Christina and the others came back safely because God was merciful to the Bomgaars family this week. But God showed mercy to the Lipscomb family too this week, so that too wasn't the reason why Christina came back safely. We couldn't even say honestly and to our satisfaction that the reason why they came back safely was that God was close to Christina and the others, because I know God was very close to the Lipscomb family this week too. In fact, does not God come closest to those who suffer most? And so maybe He was even closer to the Lipscomb family than the Bomgaars family this week. And in thinking through all those characteristics of God, His goodness, His faithfulness, His mercy, His grace, His nearness, none of those ultimately were satisfactory answers in my own mind as I thought about how to describe why Christina was able to come back safely. And instead we simply had to settle on the characteristic of God's lordship and of His sovereignty. And God in His sovereignty, using the words of Phyllis Hurley, she said, God chose to take this group of teenagers and to take them to the next level of their faith. And I thought that's what God did with this group. And others He led through the deepest portion of the valley of the shadow of death. And we're so thankful that in His sovereignty we were not asked to walk through that valley this time. Instead, our youth, I think, will have grown considerably from this experience. But with Job, whether we are asked to walk through the valley or whether we are simply through it all taken to the next level of Christian maturity, in either case we say, blessed be the name of the Lord. And the Lord was good, He was gracious, He was generous. And in His sovereignty, He didn't ask us to bear more than we were able to bear this week, and we thank Him for it.
When you pass through the fire, you'll not be burned, and the flames will not consume